Anne, Princess Royal, has been known to some as her royal rudeness, but she's also been called the monarchy's trustiest anchor over the years. Here's how King Charles's only sister has made herself invaluable and unforgettable.
The family's most public figures in the days since. King Charles III has officially ascended the throne, but he's sharing the spotlight with his sister, Princess Anne.
What if everything you believed about your family, your future, and your role in the world suddenly turned out to be a lie? How would you react if a single meeting forced you to question everything you thought was certain? Your responsibilities, your relationships, and even the legacy you were supposed to inherit? This is exactly what happened inside the private halls of Windsor Castle when Princess Anne entered with news so shocking it would shake the royal family to its core. The revelations weren't just personal. They had the potential to change centuries of tradition, reshape wealth and influence, and redefine the line of succession in ways nobody had ever imagined. Why was this moment so unprecedented? How could one private conversation hold the power to change the futures of Prince William, Prince Harry, and their families forever? And what does it mean for an institution that has stood for centuries, guiding billions across the world? In today's story, we'll take you behind the palace doors, exploring the secrets, the shockwaves, and the decisions that could redefine the British monarchy. We'll reveal the tensions, the unexpected offers, and the personal reckonings that made this day one of the most pivotal moments in royal history. By the end, you'll understand why nothing about the crown or the family will ever be the same. A royal family on the edge. Have you ever imagined discovering that everything you believed about your life and future was a lie? That shock isn't hypothetical. It became painfully real for the British royal family the day Princess Anne stepped into the private halls of Windsor Castle, carrying news so explosive it would shake the monarchy to its very foundation. This was not a trivial scandal or a gossip story. It was a historic moment that forced two princes to confront uncomfortable truths about their roles, their responsibilities, and their very futures. And at the center of it all was King Charles, facing the reality of his own mortality, making decisions that had never been attempted by a reigning monarch before. The invitation itself carried a subtle yet chilling message. It was simple, cream-colored, bearing only the royal seal. No explanation, no hint of what was to come, just a clear summons to a private meeting. Those who received it knew immediately that whatever awaited them would change the trajectory of their lives. Inside the oak-paneled room at Windsor Castle, the atmosphere was dense with tension. This was not a public or ceremonial space like the throne room, nor the casual drawing rooms where the family often gathered for informal talks. This was the monarch's private chamber, reserved for confidential matters that could not be shared with the public or even the wider family. The choice of this room alone was a statement. What was about to unfold would not just be important, it would be transformative. Prince William sat upright, his military training visible in every inch of his posture. Yet, beneath the calm exterior, tension coursed through him. His jaw was tight, his hands steady but rigid. Beside him, Catherine maintained her usual composure, though anyone watching closely could see the subtle tremor in her hands as she smoothed her dress. She had known William long enough to recognize that silence often spoke louder than words, and in that silence, she understood the gravity of the moment. Across the ornate Persian rug, Prince Harry sat alone. The distance from his brother mirrored the emotional gap that had developed over years of public disputes, private disagreements, and conflicting paths in life. Meghan's absence was deliberate. This was a family matter in its purest sense, where even the most beloved spouses were excluded from the room. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the historic weight pressing down upon every person present. Portraits of long-dead monarchs gazed from gilded frames, their eyes seeming to follow every movement, while the grandfather clock ticked steadily in the corner, each second marking a step closer to truths that would change lives forever. And then, There was the conspicuous absence of King Charles at the head of the table. His empty chair was a silent statement. This was no ordinary conversation, and his presence might have been too emotionally charged for the moment. Princess Anne had been chosen to deliver the news, a trusted figure capable of delivering hard truths without flinching. When Princess Anne finally entered, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. She moved with the precision of someone trained in discipline and duty. Her face betrayed nothing, yet her gaze conveyed an unspoken intensity. She carried a leather document case, its weight symbolic of the authority and gravity within. Anne had long been different from other royals. She worked tirelessly, avoided public spectacle.
Princess Anne, the second child and only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and the Duke of Edinburgh, is widely seen as the hardest-working royal. In addition to her indefatigable public service,
and confronted reality head-on, no matter how uncomfortable. Today, that reputation was about to be tested in a way none of them could have predicted. Anne surveyed the room carefully, taking in William's rigid posture, Catherine's carefully hidden anxiety, and Harry's defensive stance. Every glance carried the weight of consequence, and every movement of hers seemed calculated to prepare them for what was coming. With a deliberate motion, she set the case on the mahogany table and opened it slowly, letting the brass clasp click, a small sound that carried enormous weight. "What I am about to share comes directly from His Majesty," she said, her voice slicing through the heavy silence. "These are not options. They are decisions already made. Your role is to understand and accept them." Her words were precise, leaving no room for debate. This was not a conversation. It was a royal mandate delivered by the family member entrusted with speaking unvarnished truths. William leaned forward slightly, jaw tightening as he absorbed the initial shock. Harry's eyes narrowed, caught between surprise and skepticism. Catherine's knuckles whitened as she gripped her chair. The tension was so thick that even the air seemed to hum with expectation. The revelation that shook the crown. Anne continued, explaining that King Charles's recent health challenges had accelerated decisions that had been planned over many years.
King Charles spent a short period of time in hospital today after experiencing the temporary side effects of his cancer treatment. He's now returned to Clarence House, where he's continuing to work, but all official engagements tomorrow have been postponed.
Time was no longer a luxury, she said, and then came the revelation that would forever change their lives. The king had been diagnosed with cancer.
Buckingham Palace, which has announced that the king has been diagnosed with cancer.
The room collectively absorbed the weight of that news. It wasn't just a personal health crisis. It was the catalyst for monumental change in the monarchy. Charles had quietly launched what palace insiders called Operation New Dawn, a sweeping plan to restructure royal succession, estates, and influence. This was not about dethroning anyone, William remained heir, but about redefining how power, wealth, and responsibilities would be shared and modernized. The Duchy of Cornwall, a cornerstone of William's future reign, would undergo major changes. While he would remain in overall control, 40% of its assets were to be transferred to charitable trusts. Estates in Scotland, Highgrove House, and much of the duchy's investment portfolio would no longer belong solely to the heir. This meant a fundamental reduction in William's resources, reshaping the way he would eventually rule. Sandringham would become a public heritage site, and Balmoral would transform into a Commonwealth retreat. Only Windsor, Buckingham Palace, and one additional residence would remain under private royal ownership. Catherine's composure faltered. These were not just buildings. They were private spaces where the family could find privacy, and the children could experience a semblance of normalcy. For William, the implications were enormous. The financial and symbolic foundations of his future reign had shifted dramatically in the space of a single meeting. Harry's turn came next. The king had left him a path back into royal duties, but with unprecedented conditions. Full loyalty was required. No public criticism, no commercial ventures tied to the royal family, and prior approval for any publications. Accepting the offer would restore his succession rights and give him guaranteed access to official funds and events. But it came at a price, surrendering the independence he had fought so hard to achieve. William absorbed the implications with quiet determination. His father's plan meant taking on greater responsibilities more quickly and with fewer resources. Anne handed him a second envelope, a personal letter from Charles detailing the rationale behind every decision, the steps for implementation, and an expression of absolute confidence in William's ability to lead. But confidence alone could not erase the enormity of the challenge. William would be asked to lead a monarchy differently than any before him, modern, accountable, and under unprecedented scrutiny. Catherine also received recognition from the king. Her approach to royal duties had impressed Charles, and her role in public representation would now become even more central. She would need to maintain composure under pressure, support William, and manage the upbringing of children who would grow up under constant public attention. Her quiet strength would be essential to navigating this period of transformation. Harry's decision loomed as both a personal and historical turning point. Delaying a response could be seen as a rejection. Rushing could be disastrous. The offer was both an opportunity and a challenge. Every detail Anne laid out emphasized that this was not merely a family discussion. It was a decisive moment shaping the monarchy's future. When Anne closed the documents, the silence in the room was profound. For the first time, the royal family collectively understood the scale of change. A centuries-old institution was being reshaped in months, not decades. Strained relationships, private disputes, and public controversies would need repair, while the entire world watched. William and Catherine rose, ready to face the new reality. Harry sat longer, processing the decisions that would define his life, his children's lives, and the monarchy itself. In the days and months following, the impact continued to unfold. William and Catherine took on increased duties, preparing for accelerated leadership.
Prince William, the next heir to the throne, have been preparing for the role their entire lives.
Harry, from California, deliberated with Meghan on their response. Within 3 months, the monarchy's transition began to crystallize, smaller, more accountable, modern, yet fragile. William embraced his accelerated role with determination, supported by Catherine. Harry proposed a compromise, a trial period of limited engagement with royal duties while maintaining certain personal freedoms. Princess Anne's intervention had set the stage for unprecedented change. Her calm, firm delivery became the catalyst for a monarchy capable of adaptation, resilience, and relevance. She had not only delivered shocking revelations, she had opened the door to a new era, one where the crown would need to balance tradition with transparency, duty with honesty, and history with the demands of a modern world. The reckoning within. The room at Windsor Castle had barely settled after Princess Anne's revelation, but the consequences of what had been shared were already rippling through every corner of the royal household. For the first time, William and Harry faced the reality that their paths, long assumed to be fixed, were now shifting dramatically. William was being asked to assume unprecedented responsibility while losing much of the traditional wealth and privileges he had counted on. Harry, on the other hand, was presented with an opportunity to return, but only under conditions that threatened the independence he had fought so hard to protect. The tension between the brothers was palpable. Years of public disputes, leaked stories, and mutual accusations had created a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. Yet, King Charles's approach was strategic. By involving both sons in a shared vision for the future, he forced them into a situation where cooperation wasn't just preferable, it was necessary. William would need Harry's popularity and international appeal to maintain public support for a downsized monarchy. Harry, if he chose to return, would need William's authority and resources to make his involvement meaningful. The plan was delicate, balancing reconciliation with reform, and the stakes were higher than ever. Catherine, meanwhile, understood the magnitude of her role in this new reality. She would not only support William as he took on accelerated duties,
Prince William and Princess Catherine are the picture of sophistication and royal protocol,
but also become the face of a monarchy in transition. Her ability to connect with the public, show authenticity, and maintain composure under scrutiny would be crucial. Every public appearance, every speech, every interaction would serve as a demonstration of the monarchy's adaptability and humanity. Anne had carefully crafted her delivery to make the gravity of the situation clear. She did not shout or exaggerate. She simply presented facts and consequences, letting the weight of the decisions speak for themselves. And in that calm, measured way, she challenged each member of the family to see beyond tradition and confront the reality of a world that demanded transparency, accountability, and change. A monarchy in transition.
The monarchy, I'm a constitutional monarchist. I've been someone who, does, I think, probably raise an eyebrow occasionally at some of King Charles.
As the days turned into weeks, the broader implications of King Charles's decisions became more apparent. The monarchy, long an institution built on centuries of ceremony and inherited wealth, was now being tested like never before. The restructuring of estates and succession was more than administrative. It was symbolic. By redistributing wealth and modifying traditional privileges, Charles was signaling a commitment to modernization and public accountability. William's new responsibilities were immense. He found himself consulting with prime ministers, meeting with international leaders, and making decisions that would affect millions of people across the Commonwealth. His role was no longer ceremonial, it was active, strategic, and highly visible. Catherine's transformation was equally significant. Her presence became the embodiment of royal accessibility and relatability, reassuring the public that the monarchy could adapt to the values and expectations of contemporary society. Harry's response, when it finally came, was a reflection of the unprecedented nature of the situation. Rather than accepting or rejecting outright, he proposed a trial period, a year of limited engagement with royal duties while maintaining his residence in California and certain personal ventures. This compromise was unexpected, but it recognized the historical significance of the offer while preserving some degree of personal freedom. The monarchy had entered uncharted territory, and traditional rules no longer applied. Princess Anne's role in this transformation could not be overstated. By delivering the king's decisions with clarity and authority, she became the linchpin of the monarchy's survival strategy. Her ability to navigate difficult truths, address uncomfortable realities, and maintain composure under pressure ensured that the royal family could approach these changes with both strategy and integrity. Beyond internal family dynamics, the monarchy also faced growing public scrutiny. Distrust, cynicism, and indifference had begun to erode the unquestioned reverence once given to royal figures. Anne reminded Charles that the public no longer accepted filtered narratives or carefully curated appearances. They wanted authenticity. They wanted honesty. And if the monarchy failed to adapt, its relevance could erode entirely. Anne also addressed the legacy of past generations. She spoke of Diana's experiences and the emotional costs of secrecy, reminding Charles that avoiding difficult conversations had consequences. For the first time, Charles was confronted not by critics outside the palace, but by someone within the family willing to challenge the status quo. Anne's insistence on truth and transparency was not rebellion, it was preservation. William quietly supported her perspective. Though he remained loyal to the crown, he had witnessed firsthand how secrecy and performance could inflict real pain. Anne's questions prompted him to reflect on the lives of his children and the monarchy's future. The silent acknowledgement in his eyes marked the beginning of a shift, an understanding that the institution needed reform to survive. Social media, once a tool of controlled messaging, had now become a central battleground. Anne argued that the monarchy could no longer rely solely on traditional media to shape public perception. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and others amplified every rumor, criticism, and scrutiny. Direct engagement, honesty about mistakes, and sharing real moments could rebuild public trust in ways carefully edited press releases never could. Forgiveness also emerged as a central theme. Anne stressed that healing required acknowledging past mistakes, both within the family and toward the public. This was not a sign of weakness, but of strength and foresight. By embracing forgiveness and openness, the monarchy could transform a legacy of secrecy and pain into one of growth, resilience, and hope. Finally, Anne highlighted the importance of preparing the next generation. George and Charlotte, she argued, deserved a childhood free from the burdens and deceptions that previous generations endured. Emotional intelligence, accountability, and honesty would need to be central to their education, ensuring the monarchy's survival through both structure and values. The dinner ended with a mixture of cautious hope and sober reflection. Charles, once rigid and defensive, showed a willingness to listen and reconsider. Camilla's presence remained understated, but aware, recognizing the necessity of transparency for the crown's survival. William's silent support suggested a future monarchy that balanced tradition with truth, and Anne's influence had created a space where the family could face the reality of their responsibilities, relationships, and legacy. In the days that followed, these changes began to ripple outward. Public engagements, international diplomacy, and internal planning intensified. The monarchy, once perceived as an unchanging institution, was now a living, adapting entity. Every action, decision, and public appearance became a reflection of its evolution. The British monarchy had reached a crossroads. The choices made by Charles, implemented by Anne, and navigated by William, Catherine, and Harry, had set the stage for a new era, one defined not by rigid tradition, but by accountability, transparency, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. The crown was no longer merely a symbol of power. It had become a test of adaptability, resilience, and relevance. And while history had yet to pass judgment, one thing was clear. Princess Anne's intervention had not only preserved the monarchy, but had opened the door to a future where honesty, courage, and reform might allow it to endure through the next generation and beyond. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked the royal family, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends, because everyone deserves to know what really happens behind palace doors. Don't forget to subscribe for more insider stories that reveal the secrets no one else dares to tell.